heard a comedian once explain that if you're telling a really good joke, that actually half and or a majority of the people hearing it should be a bit upset, a bit off-put, and that actually the remaining, half or whatever small minority should be really laughing and getting it. And then I also recall hearing Tim Ferriss, who's the author of 4-Hour Workweek, 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Chef, and a lot of other 4-hour shit. He also told a story about how if you're doing something, whether it's a book or a creative thing or whatever you're trying to pursue, that basically it's completely acceptable and normal that 90 to 98% of everyone will hate you, will think you're stupid and not really get what you're on about. And all you really need is that 2% to be successful or to have a successful business or a successful book or what have you. And that really got me thinking about kind of the nature of truth, the nature of our experience as human beings, and then how that relates to what shows up a lot of the time as spiritual advice or positive thinking or self-help, personal development. And if you want to get ideas about what I mean, go on Instagram, type in hashtags of spiritual, of consciousness, of positive thinking or positive vibes or these different things. Look at those threads. Look at the vast majority of what's there and see what it is. Go on websites like Elephant Journal, like Mind Body Green, like myriad of other things. Go to the bookstore, go on YouTube, do research, and see from a larger perspective really what the trends and dynamics are and what's getting the most traffic and the most whatever. So that's really showing us a few different things, which I will hopefully unpack shortly. And that is, I think that the truth is generally not necessarily desired. And usually what's desired is just validation or medication. Because, as we can see from these two earlier stories from the comedian, I don't remember who it was, and or Tim Ferriss, that basically if we're doing something true and or authentic, it's going to rub people the wrong way. It's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. Yet at the same time, we can understand that and then look at these things that are showing up and see that by this basic definition of understanding, that it's probably quite impotent and quite a bit empty. So let's take a thing, for example, Eckhart Tolle. It's pretty popular. People really love the books, and people really love to beat themselves up and exercise their self-hatred and low self-esteem through trying to be in the present moment and trying to be in now and all of these kinds of things, not actually investigating what any of that means and how their constructs are actually prohibiting that from even occurring as a real possibility. So there's that. So I've seen quotes, it's like, the quickest way to get to where you want to be is to realize that you're already there. The quickest way to have whatever you want is to realize that you already have it. Which, okay, I can understand on a basic feeling quality level. You could generate the feelings of potentially being a millionaire, but actually that's not really true, because when you're a millionaire, you're going to feel differently than what you imagined, and because you're probably just going to want something else at the time, because that's the also thing of human nature is by the time we get something, we tend to not really want it anymore. And really the way to want things is to kind of not want it and not really give a shit about it. It's weird things. But really what I'm trying to get at is the fact that if it's showing up and it's widely accepted, widely just welcomed, we might want to have an air of, wait a minute, if the truth is generally offensive and generally a bit jarring, then is this actually like really a thing? And you could say that, just from looking at capitalistic kind of cultures and consumerist cultures where everything is kind of basically designed to be obscure or designed to be irrelevant within a short period of time so that you're just ready to buy the next thing. Could be some connection there. And it also reminds me of a quote from Mark Twain, And he said, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to like take a step back and think and reflect. And also another way we could understand that is if, let's say, for example, like 10 years ago or so, I probably tore my ACL and fucked up a lot of stuff in my right ankle, right? And let's say I ignored that and I just kept on going with my life, didn't take time to rest, didn't take time to heal, didn't do any physical therapy, didn't do any kind of healing modalities or anything at all. So what happened is the body's probably just going to be like, well, we got to keep going. So it's going to start filming, putting the scar tissue and such over that area to basically protect it. So we got to keep going. And then over a while, that pain's going to fade to the unconscious. I'm not really going to notice it anymore. Unless maybe I get into a downward dog really deep and start thinking, holy crap, this really hurts my ankle. And a lot of people are going to think, oh, I must be doing it wrong, or I need to quit, this sucks, or not necessarily have the capacity to realize good pain versus bad pain, because there's certain pain that's the pain of injury and further trauma, and there's the pain of breaking through existing injury and trauma. And it takes a bit of finesse to be able to understand the differences between those two things. It takes a bit of practice, which is why things are a practice. So, but if I were to just bury that away, and then someone comes along and says, hey, remember that? And just digs and just touches one little point, just the right point in the smallest way, and then I feel all of that pain again, that's basically the truth in some capacity. And at the same time, our initial reaction is going to be like, no, fuck that. No. Or to turn around and villainize the person and basically put them down and, talk about how evil they are, how stupid they are, and get all defensive in that way. So those are just a couple of other ways we could look at it, in realizing that things are often quite complex. Because let's say maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I don't even want to unwind that injury in my ankle. Maybe I don't even care. Maybe my entire physiology has distorted itself and twisted itself around that injury so that I don't feel it and so that I can adapt to it. Maybe I'm completely okay with that sort of injured way of moving in the world. But maybe I'm not. But maybe I am not. But maybe I just am not ready yet to do that. Or so many other complex variables of which we could really get into. Which really leads us to the major point that I'm hoping to make, is that the case against standardization, the case against marrying our imagination with our agenda and our anxious desire. So meaning, oh, well, I read a book and it said I shouldn't, have this thing, and, pain is just a result of, being trapped in the physical form or not being in the present moment. So that's good, and I need to do that. So I need to do that right fucking now. So I need to figure out how I can do that. I need to make this happen. So I'm going to take my imagination, all those things I just made up, marry it to my anxious desire, and then put that together and claim that that's personal development or spirituality, and then do a bunch of invasive modalities to try to rip apart all the stuff in my ankle, which maybe it's not really appropriate yet. Maybe it's not actually the correct approach. Because let's say we're going to try to grow a plant. Plant has its own time in relation to the environment and so many complex variables. And the plant just kind of grows when it grows, and we have to be patient and nurture that with the right conditions. Certain conditions can produce different results, and we can affect that growth of that plant positively or negatively based on those conditions. And it's really quite simple, quite obvious thing, but it just takes a lot more nuance and a lot more engagement than just generic blindly following of ideals which are just kind of further beating ourselves up and exhausting ourselves, and which, again, to add another layer of complexity, can be good, because sometimes the way that we actually learn is through hitting rock bottoms, through smashing our head into a wall. And the faster we can do that, the faster we can smash our head into the wall, the faster we can find out where the bottom is perhaps the faster that we can realize that it might be the bottom or it might be a wall. Thus, could actually be a good thing, but not from the point of view of our standardized, romanticized ideals of what things should and ought to be. Thus, it becomes a bit more tricky to beat ourselves up and live under things like, oh, I have to be so balanced. I have to live for this, where people were originally searching for religious salvation, but they just replace it with other things and don't actually get in touch with whether or not that's actually a thing and what that thing actually means, how that actually relates to their experience, and or if their understanding is in alignment with what the original concept and or teaching actually was. Which, if we're talking about Eckhart Tolle, that has nothing to do with any fucking tradition. Like, at all. Many of the things have nothing to do with where they actually came from. People take bits and pieces and people often take side effects of a practice and say the side effect of the practice is actually the point of the practice, and the side effect of the practice is actually the practice. When in actuality, it's just a side effect of a greater thing. It's like saying, oh, well, okay, you're going to eat food, but then you know what? I ate a meal once and I felt satisfied. So the point of eating is to feel satisfied. Okay, so I'm going to develop a whole system to teach people how to be satisfied. But then actually we're going to forget that it has anything to do with food. It has anything to do with a greater context of the continuity of human experience and nourishment and building blood and nourishing chi and all these other factors. We're just going to talk about satisfaction, and that's it. And then I'm going to write a book, The Power of Satisfaction. I'm going to tell you, you know what? The reason why you feel disconnected, all of your spiritual problems, all your negative thinking, all of your suffering, have you ever considered that maybe it's just because you don't feel satisfied? But satisfaction can be had by anyone, anytime, for only 3 easy payments of $19.95. You can buy my guide to infinite satisfaction, because satisfaction is your birthright. Satisfaction is your natural human state. It's just all of your negative thinking keeps you from it. So buy my course now.